So it's at the top of the hour here. I see we've got a couple of people on the call already, so maybe let's get going. And if we can, let's still start on. I always put together some pre-show notes, kind of a little bit of an agenda, but let's start with the governance side first, just in the event that Joe does come later and can talk a little bit about version 1.7. I don't expect it, but you never know; he might surprise us. I guess a couple of things that are up here is we had two votes conclude, and I guess we've got now a treasurer, right? um, Vaca Laranja, I think is how you say it, Portuguese for orange cow. Congratulations on being the elected PDAO treasurer.
Yep, it's great to have someone confirmed in that role as opposed to I just had a blank who it was as the temporary treasurer. Was it Jasper? But in any case, yeah, great to have Vaca Laranja, or however you pronounce it, in that role. And I think I might have mentioned it in one of the updates. It's largely an administrative role, but in a DAO situation, it's obviously very important that we have someone managing not only the numbers, but the publication and kind of external communication of those numbers so that everyone can be up to speed. There's some documentation to review and to kind of max out on that transparency.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, congratulations, Vaca. Glad to have you here. And Jasper, thank you for all your services you've done for Rocket Pool, especially serving as the interim treasurer here during this transition period. So thank you very much. The other thing that I'm actually kind of excited about, the other vote that concluded here is the Grants Management Committee vote has concluded. And so there are seven folks here that have been elected for it. First, in kind of orders of highest to lowest vote, it was Joe, Invis, Whack Whack Attack, Calderon, myself, Wander, and Mentor. So congratulations for those. I thought the whole list of nominees was excellent, and I actually I know it was only seven, but I voted for eight just because there were so many great people that that were in that nominations list. It was really hard to decide. All were very qualified.
Yeah, and in that list, there's already quite a few people who have been contributing to Rocket Pool themselves. So, who better to manage the grants and bounties system there? And yeah, it sounded like there were a couple of people who maybe just missed out of that top seven, but it's not necessarily a lifetime appointment, so there may be some churn at some point to see other people join in and contribute. I did hear from Joe, maybe he can speak to it if he does join us later on, but I heard he did have plans to get something listed, whether it's a grant or a bounty, I'm not quite sure, but to help with some of the dashboard kind of data communication side of things. I'm not sure if anyone would be qualified to put that together, but it sounds like there'll be something coming out in that space pretty shortly. There already has been some discussion on Discord about coordination within this group. I'll have to get on Langer's case today to create that GMC role on Discord if it hasn't been done already. I've also started to look at implementing these roles across on the DAO governance forum as well. So that will give people, it'll help with recognition as to who's involved in both the GMC and the IMC at the same time. I think I need a little bit of help from Nick on that one, but he should be online later today. We can sort that out. And then I think, it's probably worthwhile getting an announcement out, a tweet or two, kind of congratulating everyone and, making it clear that we do now have that grants and bounty system, if not active quite yet, but very shortly. So it'd be great to see the great work that comes out of that. And also, I even have a couple of ideas myself about potential bounties to put up to help on the marketing and comm side of things. So it'll be a great resource to have for sure.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that's a really good message for everyone listening here is that, I can say that I've seen lots of emails within the GMC group to just start to spin up the, I'll call it the bureaucratic process to, have a scoring matrix or rubric, and then to have an application or form for both grants. Grants would be something where somebody is putting forward a proposal to fund some effort, and there's it's an open bid or an open submittal process. A bounty would be something where somebody comes in and says, "Hey," or maybe I have it backwards that way, right? A grant is, "Hey, look, I want to build this thing. Please fund me for it. I have an ideal." A bounty is one in which, hey, we need something, let's put it up for kind of like a request for proposal or request for bid, and then a retroactive funding initiative, because we've had many contributors from the community that have already developed tools and assets for Rocket Pool here, and they'll now have an opportunity to be remunerated for that retroactively. So I know they're pushing hard to kind of get something going here within 30. Have any ideas or any interest, please definitely get pen paper ready here, and as soon as that announcement is made about the process and how to apply, put in your thoughts and ideas. It's going to be very exciting. Okay. Now the other item here, and Mav, I'm glad you're on, is probably one of our most engaging votes yet. At least this is the currently active vote in which individuals that have staked RPL could vote on right now, and this is one to decide what the maximum RPL setting is going to be for low ETH bonded mini pools. And so this one's going on, and it's certainly, I don't think if anyone listening on this call, if you've been active in the community, you've probably seen quite a lot of posts on this thing, or quite a lot of conversations about it. It's kind of hard to avoid the debate on this thing here. But Mav, maybe for those that, in case there is somebody listening to this in Twitter, or just coming in, or been on the sidelines and want to know a little bit more about it, would you mind trying to take a swing at it, describing what this vote is, and what it does, and what are the options that they get a vote on?
Yeah, I just realized that this is the first call we've had since this vote went live. It honestly feels like it's been discussed for weeks, but I guess that's a reflection of the kind of degree of engagement that the topic has had. So yeah, it is the first opportunity to kind of talk about what's going on here. I won't go into too much detail in explaining, I guess the details of the different options in terms of like pros and cons, just for wanting to kind of remain impartial. But I will speak quite a bit about the topic in general, what people need to know, how they can get involved, how they can learn more, and things like that. So, in terms of what is being voted on, the topic here is the maximum RPL collateralization. Right now, with the mini pools, we have 16 ETH contributed by the operator, and then, of course, 16 ETH comes in from liquid staking. And there's that range in which staked RPL is effective between 10 and 150%. As we move to LEBs, that shifts to, at least initially, 8 ETH contributed by the mini pool operator, and the balance being contributed by liquid staking. So relatively early on in the discussion around LEBs, it was settled on what the minimum would be. So what is currently that 10% or 1.6 ETH worth of RPL for a mini pool will become 2.4 ETH. So even as the node operator's collateral decreases, the amount of RPL, the minimum required to start an LEB mini pool, and that has to be required to maintain the RPL payments, increases. And that's a reflection of the fact that there's an additional or a larger sum of liquid staking funds that essentially that node operator is quote unquote responsible for. What was not necessarily confirmed as early on was, sure, we've set that minimum of 2.4 ETH, but what should the maximum be? In the past, it was 150% of 16 ETH, but there are certainly some technical, but I suppose more importantly, economic, or you could say tokenomic implications of what that maximum should be. So we have 3 options that are up for voting. In terms of the number of setting that max collateral, there's 12 ETH, 24 ETH, and 32 ETH. So there's also another couple of options that can be voted on, and these are to remove LEBs from Atlas entirely, and to abstain. Sorry, I think I said 32 ETH before. It's 36 ETH is the kind of largest amount of collateral, and there has been a lot of discussion everywhere, right? Obviously, most in the Discord. There's been a little bit on Reddit, noticed, a bit on Twitter as well, and I suppose you could say some rather strong views from some people. And as I mentioned in one of the announcements, all things considered, it's been a relatively civil discussion. It's probably worth pointing out right now something that people may kind of forget or may not have noticed, and that's in the one and only trading channel. The number one rule is to be excellent to each other. So I'd just like to remind people that as we're discussing this topic, which is of course quite important and can lead to some kind of heated engagements, to be excellent to each other and to try and focus on kind of the topic at hand rather than the person that may be communicating a particular view. In saying that, I feel like perhaps a lot of the discussion has already been had, even though there are still a few more days left for voting. So to talk about the voting system a little bit more, this is slightly different to what people may be used to in the past. We have a voting system called approval voting. So this enables people to select all of the options that they agree with in the case that they may favor more than one. So just make sure that you understand that and don't automatically select just your top preferred option. Of course, if there's only one outcome that you think should be selected, then that probably makes sense. But there is that option to select more than one if you so desire. That will not split your voting power. So if you have 100 vote, you can allocate 100 vote to every option should you so desire to. Or if you select just one, then your 100 vote power would go to that one. That probably explains why, and of course the importance of the vote as well, that we do have a lot of vote power being allocated, and the percentages subbing to more than 100%. If you look down the different options, we have a 56%, a 50%, a 15%. We're already above 100%, and that's due to how the approval voting system works. So, in terms of what people should choose, obviously, I'm not going to tell people what they should choose right here. But the most important thing that people can do is to get educated. It's not necessarily a straightforward topic, even if you are a mini pool operator, even if you have a good understanding of how Rocket Pool works. I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, it does take a little bit of thinking to get to a conclusion in terms of the best option. And it's also a good time to point out that this is not necessarily a kind of final end result, and that of course the outcome of this vote, as the team has said, will be implemented, but it's not necessarily the end for Rocket Pool. So that's not to say that we immediately revisit this with another vote, but further down the line, we're talking about LEBs with lower numbers, right? There's no guarantee that this topic in general won't be revisited in the future. It's very possible that rocket pool's dynamics may be quite different in the future if we're talking about a kind of mature staking market with a significant share captured by rocket pool. Some people have done modeling which suggests the amount of average collateral people are likely to hold could change over time. At the moment, we're definitely in a kind of growth phase, and as the market transitions to one of more maturity later down the track, it might make sense to look at this again. So it is an important vote. It's something that I think people need to spend the time to become educated on. And, that will serve people well, not just for this vote, but for broader understanding of how Rocket Pool works. And that will lead to, I think, hopefully increased engagement in future governance, having that kind of higher level of knowledge about the Rocket Pool protocol. But it also helps you, right, in terms of your participation in the protocol, and it'll help your decision making when it comes to what you may not want to purchase or spin up in terms of mini pools in the future. In the vote, the snapshot vote, which can be found at the top of vote.rocketpool.net, there are some links there which include links to the RPIP, which is, I think, RPIP 8 for LEBs, and a couple of examples of cases that people have put forward for the different options. At one point, there was interest in having some kind of, I guess you would call it a debate, but an audio discussion with people presenting the different views and kind of arguing a case for them. That's the interest in that seems to have dropped away. There is still time, should there be interest to have this event. I'm more than happy to help coordinate it. The voting doesn't end until, at least for my New Zealand time zone, kind of late afternoon on the 5th, which is what's today? I guess it's the weekend, right? So there still is time. If there's interest, we can put that together. Obviously, we need people from the community to kind of champion one of these options, but that can be done should people want to kind of hear from the different sides. As I said at the start, I won't be doing that right now on this call in terms of kind of arguing a case for the different points. And also when it comes to the chit chat on Friday, which is scheduled in, sure, it's a relevant topic. Perhaps really the only topic of discussion right now. We obviously, we don't want to turn that chit chat into a debate, because it's not really the point of what that call is about. But at the same time, we're not exactly going to censor people either. So if that kind of is what it turns into, then I guess we run with that. Although the idea of those chit chats, as much as possible, is to keep it more, I guess, lighthearted and focus on things outside of Rocket Pool. So yeah, I would encourage people, if there is interest. I think trying to remember who did express that interest originally. I think Whack Attack may have volunteered to kind of help coordinate that. But yeah, I'll keep an eye out in trading over the next day or two, and we can proceed with that if people are keen. I think I pretty much said all there is to say on that one.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job kind of describing that. I mean, the two things that I might add is that there is an extraordinary large number of people that are voting on this. Our highest vote prior to this, I mean, there weren't many votes, but there were some, was around 5,000 voting RPL, and already this one is at 7,000. So that means that there's at least a couple thousand voting RPL, that this is their first measure that they are voting in and casting their vote. And I think that's excellent to see that level of engagement. So, but if anybody needs help in the mechanics of how to vote, because it might be their first time, definitely reach out and support or one of the trading channels and do it. There's some great guides that are written that just kind of explain the mechanics of how to vote, whether you've enabled a delegate or not a delegate. If you had staked RPL prior to this snapshot to a voting window opening, you're eligible to vote. And if you want to vote, we can work with you to make certain that your vote is counted. Okay. Let's talk about another topic that's kind of come up a little bit, and a little bit of controversy here, which was the delay in producing the Merkle trees for the last claim reward. That was, I guess, the fundamental cause of this was that the majority of our ODAO members didn't have access to a functioning archive node. And I guess a little bit in the hot wash has come out about, well, was it really clearly articulated to them that they needed to have an archive or availability of an archive node or not? Do you want to share just a little bit about that? And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with Langers to see if they would do a more deep dive root cause analysis or what the improvements are on this.
Yeah, sure. I can speak on this briefly. So, the topic is that there was a delay of, I can't exactly remember how many hours, but a few hours in terms of getting those rewards done. A few hours ago, at least last night for me, Lang has provided some additional context on the topic. But essentially, what it just comes down to is that miscommunication in terms of expressing the importance of having that archive node. That's been clarified. We've already had, I think, at least a couple of the ODAO members resolve that, so it shouldn't be an issue going forwards. I don't think there's really much else to say there, and yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thanks for covering that. Let's move forward here and talk about the dev team. I guess the question that is always coming up, as we have more things to do than we have people to do them here, is win job postings. What inside bread can you share us about the Rocket Pool dev team or the product team, and what's coming down the pipeline here?
In terms of a larger team, I know there has been talk about, I believe it was hiring or bringing on one additional kind of FTE on the development side. I actually haven't heard anything more about that. I can bring it up with the guys on the team call later today. I suppose we can also think about the grants and bounties as a way to pick up some of these topics. I know Joe has kind of talked about dashboard creation and potentially helping with some of the documentation. So perhaps that's an avenue that can kind of provide a bit of short-term relief. But we can. I'm pretty sure. Well, at least I will be on the chit chat on Friday, so I can provide an update there. If not from maybe Langers himself. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any more details to share on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that would actually be great if you could kind of just follow up on it. It was sort of, I don't know, maybe hinted or implied, and I think it got a number of folks excited about the growth opportunities that the team might be entering. I know it certainly comes up when we look at just the amount of initiatives or projects that we want for Rocket Pool, and it seems like we are always resource constrained in one mechanism or the other. So it would be great, if you could follow up on that and just let everybody know, because I know it comes up quite a bit in the conversations in the Discord.
Yeah, to clarify, it was something that Langers and or Dave did mention. I guess relatively recently, probably sometime last month. So it's more than an implication at this stage in terms of the question that everyone wants to know, which is when. Yeah, I'm not quite sure on that. I suppose I would take the opportunity to say that it is always a tricky one in terms of balancing. Well, I guess all expenditure and developer resources is one of those things that the number of projects that I've seen or been involved with that overhire during the bull market, right? Because adoption is happening, and right now in what you could say is not necessarily the worst bear market on record. They're absolutely stuffed, right? Because they've burnt through so many resources. They've spent so much on marketing and staff. You can look at friends over at Lido in terms of the headcount and the cash burn that they have. And sure, perhaps we are a little bit too far to the other extreme. But if there was one side of kind of the perfect situation, I would probably prefer to be on Rocket Pool's side. You have these micro caps that start up with multiple people in kind of marketing roles. I guess I can probably speak more to that side because that's my area of expertise. And similarly on the dev side as well, right? And yeah, if you kind of burn that candle at both ends at the wrong time, there can be some pretty bad outcomes. So yeah, hindsight's 2020. There has been those comments from Langers about perhaps it would have been a good idea to scale up a little bit quickly, a little bit sooner. But the fact that Rocket Pool is still here, still building, still improving after starting whenever it was back in 2016, you can't say that about many protocols, that's for sure. So yeah, we'll have some more information in terms of additional staff, what that could possibly look like on the chit chat.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Definitely something to look forward to then. So maybe let's talk about my favorite subject here, which is the next in-person conference that the Rocketbolt team is going to be at, which I think is going to be ETH Denver, unless there's some smaller conference coming up between here and there. Matt, can you share a little bit about what you're thinking the plans might be for ETH Denver, and in particular how the community might get involved or be able to help out?
Yeah, sounds good. It's less than 3 months away, and between now and then we have obviously the Christmas break, and then not necessarily so relevant for us down here in the southern hemisphere, but there is Thanksgiving as well. So in terms of, I guess, business days, it's fast approaching, that's for sure. So I've been kind of running around trying to get some planning out of the way. The first one of that being accommodation, and thankfully, unlike in terms of getting there for us down here in Australia and New Zealand, it's a lot more straightforward than for Bogota. So that's one problem that's not going to be the case for Denver. And it looks like accommodation is pretty good so far as well. We have put in an application for sponsorship. It sounds like there is a lot of demand. We have gone for one of the higher tiers of sponsorship, and I think we're just waiting back to hear whether that can be confirmed or whether we have to get bumped down. Some of the benefits of the higher tier include additional kind of speaking presence at the event, and for me, what I will occupy most of my time with being the booth, a larger booth space. And we do have a few ideas in terms of what might be present there. I can probably run through a few of them now. The first thing, so maybe for context, in my previous life in the airline industry, I have attended a couple of, I guess you could call it, similar kind of trade conferences, and the way I see it working for Rocket Pool is there's probably going to be a decent amount of interest, but the focus of ETH Denver is a little different to DevCon, right? ETH Denver is more of that sales and marketing opportunity. I may be surprised in that there's as much brand awareness of Rocket Pool as there was at ETH Denver, which sounded, sorry, I did it again. There was as much awareness of Rocket Pool at ETH Denver than there was at DevCon, because it sounded like DevCon was fairly knowledgeable about Rocket Pool. But I suppose maybe that's because the attendees are more on the kind of tech side, as opposed to maybe some of the salesy focus that will be present at ETH Denver. But in any case, we're looking at the kind of merch and giveaways that will be available. That always works very well. That may include some special kind of higher tier merch that we can make available for mini pool operators. So watch this space. And of course, educational content is a big one, right? There'll be some people attending who may or may not know about Rocket Pool, but they will have some questions, right? They'll want answers to things they don't know. So that may be just things like how difficult is it technically? What are the returns? So making sure we can communicate that effectively, but also there may be a lot of things that people won't know to ask, right? So to make sure that we can educate people who may just be wandering past for a free t-shirt or whatever, and to be able to show them all the benefits about Rocket Pool. So there are quite a few ideas floating around right now. We just have to kind of nail them down and sort out how exactly we want to implement. But that will probably take place throughout the rest of this month. There will be opportunities to kind of meet with other Rocket Poolers, to meet with a team. We're looking at what we can do in terms of more, I guess, social events that will take place during ETH Denver, but maybe not on site at ETH Denver, if that makes sense. There's potentially opportunities for a workshop or two that's kind of in between, where the Rocket Poolers and the team can meet together, but there'd be more of a perhaps educational focus or information sharing. So potentially a lot to get excited about. One thing that we really want to leverage, if we can, for the event is the really strong community that we obviously have, and at the same time we have partners that we work with, right, in terms of the client teams, relays. We had Blocks Route and who's the other guy, Block Native, on recently to chat with us. So looking at potentially ways to collaborate with them. As far as the community goes, we may have a need for volunteers on site in some kind of roster setup. There may be exclusive merch that goes along with that role, and hoping to put out some more details on this, as well as potentially setting up a kind of roster system later this month too, so that we can start planning for that. At this stage, it's likely that some or all of the team will attend the mountain retreat afterwards, so that will be another great opportunity to kind of do a bit of meet and greeting, separate from what will be no doubt a very busy event. So looking forward to that one, and I'm very aware that it's really not that far away. I joined one of the ETH Denver community calls last weekend to see if there was any kind of planning information, but not really a whole lot shared on that. They're every kind of, I guess, Friday afternoon, evening for most people, Saturday morning for me, but I'll probably jump on them to see if anything else is shared, and if so, I can pass it along on these calls. But so far, nothing of note. But yeah, that's ETH Denver. Between now and then, I don't think we will be attending any other events. There have been a couple. There was one in Barcelona, right? I think that may have happened, or it's still ongoing. A little bit far for for us to go. I hate to think what the flight time would be to what is literally the other side of the world from New Zealand anyway. So yeah, we're focused on ETH Denver, and looking forward to putting on a great show for Rocket Pool there.
Yeah, well, I am just incredibly excited about it. I mean, first, it's ETH Denver. If you haven't been, this is the year to come to go for it, right? Follow along when the tickets open. The tickets are free for the attendees, so but you got to get in. You got to get in quick, and I think to have Rocket Pool have a forward presence there with a lot of fun events, I think this is going to be the one. If you're going to go to this year's because I think it's going to just be really, really great. Something I'm looking forward to, definitely. Before we go on to kind of the front kind of topics, and recognizing you have a hard stop here in less than 30 minutes, there was a question from Don DeChaka here that asked about the update on Chainlink. Anything you can share on that?
We haven't heard anything more from Chainlink. I think I recall Jasper within the past week posting an update on the volume requirements. So, or how we've kind of met them or haven't quite met them. The requirement from Chainlink is relatively strict these days. So they require the volume threshold to be met for 30 consecutive days. And they are applying this, pretty strictly now. It sounded like for the past couple of weeks we may have met that requirement. So I guess it just remains to be seen how we continue to track. I think at a certain point, once we've largely met those volume stats, even if it's not quite 100%, we will go back to Chainlink to follow up with them to see if there's any leeway there. But I think at this stage, it's still probably a couple weeks more of kind of higher volume needs to come in before we do that. We have had a couple calls with them. That was, when was that? I guess over a month ago now. But obviously the rETH liquidity incentive has changed things a little bit. I guess that's where we're at with them.
Okay, perfect. So let's circle back around, I guess, to the top of the agenda here. And first thing I'm going to have here is node operators. It seems like there's a couple of things coming down the pike, right? I guess there's a fee distributor fix. It looks like at least one of the ODAO members has proposed it. What happens next? Is that going to go for kind of ODAO vote? And what advice do we have to people that are using their fee distributor? When can they start claiming against it without causing a glitch?
So we'll put out an update once that has all been confirmed. I would say that it's probably going to be sometime next week. But yeah, kind of final stretch for that to be implemented. Last I heard was that it was pretty much all sorted, so not too much longer to wait now. To remind everyone, that has been that fix has been implemented and audited, and we're just kind of waiting on that final update until we can resolve that issue. And obviously, anyone in the smoothing pool, this doesn't affect at all. So always a good opportunity to plug the smoothing pool, which has been performing pretty well lately. So if you haven't considered that yet, would highly recommend you look into it as an option.
Yeah, since you mentioned the smoothing pool, right? It had we just finished an award cycle back on October 26th, so not too long ago, right? And I think it was a very profitable award cycle because in there it actually had one of the validators in the smoothing pool found a lottery block, and so I believe we had in excess of 200 ETH in that rewards period to distribute, and so that was a very fun day. Yeah,
fun for everyone except for I guess whoever contributed it. But that's how the smoothing pool goes, right? You win some, you lose some. On average, in theory, you end up on top.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of funny how it works, right? If you're not in the smoothing pool, you hope and pray that your validator receives the lottery block. But if you're in the smoothing pool, you hope and pray that all your other smoothie partners find lottery blocks and not you. And then I know Joe's been working on Rocket Pool, Smart Stack release 1.7. That's going to have some kind of fundamental changes to it, right? If I recall, the fundamental changes are that now the MEV boost is an opt-out mode, right? It's on by default, and the selection of the MEV relays, I think, is by attribute and not by the name of the relay service, right? So you could decide if you want to be ethical or unethical, or OFAC compliant or non-OFAC compliant, censoring or non-censoring. And but do you know the latest as to when that's going to come out? I know that I think we were delaying for the fee distributor fix, or for some reason, but is it on the horizon to be released? When should node operators expect it?
I think like the fee distributor fix, the answer to this one is also soon. You pretty much summed up 1.7 quite well. It's probably worth noting that this is kind of stage 2 of 3 in terms of MEV boost, moving from the opt-in to opt-out. So it's still optional, but for people who just follow along and kind of select whatever is default, it may now result in them having to consciously make the decision to opt out. So I think, in theory, not much changes, but as we know, how people tend to operate, I would expect to see. Well, I'd be surprised if we didn't see an increase in MEV participation from new mini pools. There was that one delay that you mentioned. The other thing that I did hear, and again, it's very much a Joe topic, so I don't want to kind of put words in his mouth or talk about his smart node. Maybe we can again cover this on Friday if Joe or Langers or someone else is present. But there may have been something to do with one of the clients as well, in terms of them pushing out an update first before 1.7. But in any case, it sounded like most of the work on our side is complete. So that's something else I'll get a note for, to get the latest update for on the chit chat.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's kind of funny myself as well. We rely so much on Joe to provide these updates that I don't really track kind of what's happening down the pike here with the releases. So I'm going to have to go back and refresh my own memory. But I'm going to be excited for when 1.7 comes out. I know he's been diligently working on it. Maybe let's switch over now to the liquid side of the protocol here, the rETH stakers. Now, what's the latest with the incentives? And the question that everybody's asking: how does one mint rETH? It seems like some bot is sucking up any availability in the data in the deposit pool the second that it becomes available. How do we get rETH?
Well, there's always an option to buy it on the secondary market, of course. Right now, at least last time I checked, it was trading at a bit of a premium. So may not be quite as good a deal as using the deposit queue. But on that topic, we have had an update from 1inch overnight that they've integrated the deposit pool in both directions in terms of depositing and withdrawing. So when you transact through 1inch, that is one potential route that your transaction could take. So in theory, you're getting the best of both worlds there in terms of options. I know there are a few people in the community who prefer other platforms like CowSwap and the like, but that is an opportunity there. But yeah, overall a pretty high demand for rETH, and there is, depending on how the secondary market is pricing rETH, potential for arbitrage. So that is some of what we're seeing when some of these premiums, well, when the premium gets high enough, there is an economic incentive for arbitrage using the deposit pool. So I suppose, to answer your question, LEBs will certainly help out with the supply of mini pools, and aside from that, there is the secondary market. I guess worth pointing out, when you're running the numbers to work out whether it makes sense to buy through 1inch or wherever, that there is this small fee for depositing to get your rETH, and trading on the secondary market doesn't incur that. So make sure you factor that in. Although even the premium where it's at is not huge, so it's likely to be kind of made back relatively quickly. For other rETH news, you may have seen yesterday Langers shared an update about the OP tokens, which have finally been received. And so now the next steps are to get them distributed out to into the Beats pool and the Velodrome pool as per the submission to Optimism. So potentially a great source of rETH yield coming up soon. So if you're interested in perhaps participating in this, you haven't bridged to and from Optimism yet, might be a good time to kind of brush up on that knowledge, because you will need to have your assets over on the layer 2 to participate in that.
Yeah, perfect. And then maybe here, just to kind of conclude here, let's talk about our favorite subject out of all of them here, which is Atlas. Maybe tell us the latest here, right? The audits are scheduled. Are they hard dates? Do we need to go back and finalize what is in and out? I've heard that there's a code freeze on there, but are LEBs in, LEB8s, and are we go? And what's the latest?
Well, to answer the question on LEBs, yeah, they're definitely in. I guess unless the vote swings largely to that option, but all indications are that it is going ahead. In terms of exact dates, not too sure on that one. Might be a question for Langers on Friday. But we did have those audit teams provide some availability before the end of the year, which was pretty good, because the auditors that we use are not always that easy to get a hold of. They're in high demand when it comes to the audit teams with that great reputation. So for them to make the time to help us out there is pretty great to see. Aside from this vote, which will obviously make a significant change potentially to how Atlas looks in terms of that maximum RPL collateral for LEBs. On the actual workload side, I don't believe there's too much of an impact. So by all accounts, we're still tracking for Atlas, and everything's looking pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the timing works out here. I was reading a little bit of the cliff notes of the all core devs meeting that happened earlier in the week, and it does sound like the ideal of a thinner release for Bellatrix here in Shanghai that definitely includes withdraws, but may or may not have the beginnings of 40, 48, 44, whatever the number is coming out. And so they were thinking early early 2023 here, so it it may happen that we launch Atlas and there's not much time between when it's implemented and when withdrawals come out in the next Ethereum fork. So I think kind of the pressure's on to keep this accelerated cadence up.
Yeah, it's interesting timing around that. Also, in terms of looking past Atlas to future updates, like the staking as a service, I understand that the implementation of that will become a lot easier if it is done after withdrawals. So that is something to keep in mind in terms of the way that the updates are being prioritized. So yeah, if it all kind of tracks as we're expecting it to, it could be looking pretty good in terms of Atlas withdrawal, staking as a service. It's going to be a busy few months. And I'm guessing this will all will happen kind of before after ETH Denver. So um, even more important to uh, make make our presence known there for Rocket Pool and to put on a good show.
Yeah, definitely. I think shows the alignment and the importance that there's going to be such a presence there at ETH Denver that if we're going to make a change or an acceleration in our staking share, really this opportunity with withdrawals is really where it's going to be most fluid and will make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time. So I think you're right. It's absolutely critical to get the technology, the protocol enhancement, the marketing, the communications, the messaging all kind of lined up and just show a tremendous, outpouring of community support. I think is going to be critical there around ETH Denver. So I know you've got a hard stop here coming up, but is there any last things that we didn't cover on there? The one thing that would be helpful for us is we need a code name for our next release, and so a lot of people are asking what's next after Atlas. So if maybe on the chit chat day they could tell us what the code name of the next name of the protocol update will be. But Mav, anything that we haven't covered that you want to kind of sneak to the group here? Well, no one else is on. We promise we'll keep it just between us.
I think we've covered most of the important topics from kind of my side in terms of the marketing, the comms, the media. I did mention on one of the previous calls last week that we were looking at another kind of I suppose marketing piece. I think I kind of compared it to Bankless. It certainly, to clarify, it certainly is not the same scale as Bankless, but in terms of I suppose the nature of it as a strategic communications piece that should address a particular audience, I think it will have a pretty good impact and deliver some good ROI. With earlier this week, we got kind of a draft through in terms of what that will look like. I don't want anyone to get too excited, right? It is a much smaller kind of exercise, but I do think it'll be beneficial for Rocket Pool, and it should be out, should be public. I say within a couple of weeks. So yeah, it'd be nice to be able to share that with everyone. But yeah, probably now is a good time to cut it off. Gives me 5 minutes or so to grab another coffee before this next call. But yeah, as always, great chatting, and we'll see everyone in a couple of days' time.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mav. It's been great talking to you again, and wish you luck with the next protocol conversation. And great making the time to spend with us all today and share the latest.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks to everyone listening live here on Twitter Spaces and potentially later on YouTube as well. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Yep. Talk to you guys all in trading. Bye.